On a snowy Saturday in Minnesota, the St. Louis Cardinals played in their first title game in 25 years. The Cardinals, champions of the NFC East, met the Vikings, winners of the Central, and led by quarterback Jim Hart's brilliant passing, played Minnesota to a standstill in the first half of this title game. But the Vikings and Brand Tarkenton blew the game wide open in the second half, and Minnesota won 30-14. For the Cardinals, it was a disappointing end to a great season. A season they became one of the biggest stories in pro football. On the opening day of the '74 season, it would have been difficult to find anyone in St. Louis to believe the Cardinals could become division champions in one short year. For the previous season, despite the coming of Don Coryell, the team had suffered its third successive record of 4-9-1. Yet much had been accomplished. Most important, the confidence Coryell placed in Jim Hart as starting quarterback, and the spark he provided the entire team with his innovative and warmly personal approach to coaching. Though he was certain the team would improve his second season, even an optimist like Coryell couldn't foresee the complete turnaround the Big Red would make in 1974. In the opener against Philadelphia, the Cards' much maligned defense won the game with a superb team effort. Roman Gabriel was sacked 5 times as the Eagles were held to 3 points. St. Louis needed just 1 touchdown, a short pass to Donnie Anderson to win. But victory didn't come easily. With 27 seconds left, the Eagles had 4 chances to score from the 9. But the Big Red defense responded with a heroic goal line stand. All 4 Philly passes were unsuccessful, and the result was not only a close win, but a huge psychological lift for the entire team. In the season's second week against Washington, the Cardinals' big play offense exploded for the first time. Terry Metcalf's 75-yard touchdown run was the longest of the season in the NFL. But once again, it was the defense which stole the show. Ron Jankowski went 71 yards with a fumble. And like the week before, the defense again made a late goal line stand, stopping 4 straight passes from the 10. Jim Tolbert's end zone interception wrapped up the team's second victory and second impressive performance by the defense. The third week, the defense again proved its penchant for the big play when Norm Thompson went 56 yards with an interception against Cleveland. Beginning in the second half, the Cardinals' big play offense was ignited by Terry Metcalf, who went 94 yards on one of the most sensational kick returns ever seen. In this game, St. Louis unveiled the potent passing combination of Jim Hart to Mel Gray, which struck for 2 long touchdown bombs, one of which was called back because of holding. St. Louis had its first breathing, easily beating the Browns 29-7. Mel Gray and Jim Hart continued their long-range bombing the next week by teaming for 2 swift touchdown strikes against the 49ers. On this sunny San Francisco Sunday afternoon, the St. Louis big play offense devastated their opponents with 34 points. But once again, the Cardinals' surprising defense refused to take second billing. They totaled 4 sacks, 2 interceptions, and limited the 49ers to just 9 points. Through the first 4 games of the season, the defense had given up only 29 points, and all year long, they continued to make the big play. It was a defense that allowed many yards but few points, and at season's end set a club record for lowest points permitted. The toughest defense St. Louis has ever had. The front 4 was Bob Rowe at right tackle and Ron Jankowski at right end. Leo Brooks was the left tackle, and Council Rudolph, number 74, the left end. Rudolph's 3rd year was his first as a starter, and he gave the Cards improved pass rush from the left side. On the right, number 78, Ron Jankowski, had his most spectacular year in 4 in the NFL, while number 75, co-captain Bob Rowe, was the anchor of the line with his 8 years' experience. St. Louis suffered a severe blow in the opener when they lost highly prized Dave Butts for the season. His replacement at tackle was large Leo Brooks, number 70, who switched from his customary end position, yet still excelled at rushing the passer. Linebacker was the one position on defense where St. Louis had consistency and good health all year. Pete Barnes brought 8 years of hard hitting to the right side. While on the left was 12-year Cardinal Larry Stallings, number 67, a heady player who was rarely out of position. In the middle is number 57, the youngster of the trio, Mark Arneson, aggressive, hard-hitting, and just coming into his own at the vital middle linebacker position. In the secondary were cornerbacks number 22, All-Pro Roger Worley, and Norm Thompson, number 43, who led the team with 6 interceptions. Number 45, Jim Tolbert, and number 41, Clarence Duran, were the safeties. They were joined in midseason by number 36, Ken Reeves, who lent needed experience to the young secondary. Entering the season's 5th week, the Cardinals were still undefeated and played Dallas in one of the outstanding games ever seen in Busch Stadium. Against Tom Landry's Cowboys, the one thing the team wished to avoid was to get behind early. But the first time Dallas touched the ball, that's exactly what happened, as Dennis Morgan went coast to coast. Then from Don Coryell's vast box of tricks came this extraordinary sequence of events. Mel Gray, apparently injured, limped off and was replaced by Gary Hammond. On the next play, Jim Hart lateraled to Hammond, and the ex-quarterback from SMU zeroed in on Jackie Smith far downfield. "83 yards later, Smith was caught from behind. But the astonishing play led to the game-tying touchdown. And minutes later, Mel Gray proved his limp was indeed an Oscar-winning performance. The 80-yard touchdown put the Cards up by 7. However, Dallas came right back to tie. Then the Big Red attack really exploded. For the 4th time in 5 games, Jim Hart had 100% protection from his line as he picked the Cowboys secondary clean. Jackie Smith's fantastic individual effort helped give the Cardinals a seemingly safe 14-point lead over Dallas. But Tom Landry and the Cowboys were now faced with extinction in the Eastern Division race. Late in the fourth quarter, rallied to tie the game at 28 apiece. Here, Dallas made a costly mistake. All day, they had avoided kicking to Terry Metcalf. But now they changed their strategy and dearly paid for it. Metcalf's 56-yard clutch return set up a field goal attempt with just 62 seconds left in this hard-fought game. Jim Bakken's kick was good, and St. Louis had one of the most exciting wins in their history, 31-28. The victory put them one game ahead of Washington in the race for the Eastern Division title. The next week against Houston, the Big Red again exploded for the big play, most of them by elusive Terry Metcalf. Metcalf totaled 265 yards for the best day of his two-year NFL career. And Jim Hart twice hit Earl Thomas with touchdown passes as the Cardinals became the league's only unbeaten team with 6 consecutive victories. Off to the best start in the club's 55-year history, St. Louis hosted Washington in a rematch with their closest challenger. Once again, the big play was in evidence, both on offense and defense, as the Cards jumped to a 16-0 lead in the first half. Jim Hart had an outstanding afternoon, completing his first 8 passes and finishing 15 of 19 for 200 yards as the Big Red attack riddled George Allen's proud old defense. The Cardinals' second win over Washington gave them a perfect ledger of 7 wins, no defeats. At the halfway point in the season, the St. Louis lead in the East ballooned to 3 full games over the Redskins. The leader of Don Coryell's high-powered attack was Jim Hart, who had his greatest season ever. Hart led the conference in fewest times sacked, lowest interception percentage, and the most touchdown passes. He threw 20, most of the spectacular variety. As testament to his fine season, Jim Hart was named the National Conference's Player of the Year. Elimination of the bump and run allowed Mel Gray to use his 9.2 sprinter speed to become one of the league's most dangerous receivers. He averaged 20 yards for every catch. The other wide receivers were talented rookie J.B. King and Earl Thomas, who came in the club's best trade. The biggest single factor in the Cards' great season was their superb offensive line. Their forte was pass protection, for Jim Hart was sacked less than any quarterback in the NFL and had ample time to allow his receivers to get downfield for his long passes. Number 51, Tom Brahaney, became the regular center in his second season. And number 66, hard-nosed Conrad Dobler, was devastating at guard. At 6'3", 275 pounds, number 72, huge Dan Deerdorf, was an all-pro right tackle. While at the left was the senior member of the line, the great Ernie McMillan, a team record 14 seasons as a Cardinal. When he was healthy, McMillan provided needed leadership to the gifted young forward wall. And when he was not, Roger Finney, number 60, moved in and moved his opponent out. The fullback was number 35, Jim Otis, who gained nearly 700 yards, all of them the hard way, through the heart of enemy defenses. The most versatile Cardinal of all is Terry Metcalf, who broke Ollie Matson's 20-year record for total offense with 2,058 yards. Metcalf parlayed sheer speed and sure hands into 50 catches, a record for Cardinal running backs. He was particularly valuable to Jim Hart as a secondary receiver. Once he had the ball out on the flat, had the chance to use his great moves to turn short gains into long ones. As good as Metcalf is as a receiver, he's even better as a runner, leading the entire NFL in kickoff returns. In 1974, Terry Metcalf was the most exciting runner to ever wear a Cardinal uniform. One man above all others symbolizes the team's fierce determination to win. And this one memorable play on which he broke 5 tackles amply illustrates the superhuman effort Jackie Smith gives on every play. In his 12th year, Smith is the Cards' all-time leading receiver and has been named the premier tight end in the history of the NFL. Old pro Jackie Smith is an inspiration to every player in the game of football. In the season's 8th week, the Cardinals traveled to Dallas, a tough place to be with a 7-game win streak on the line. But St. Louis started well, with Jim Hart throwing scoring passes to Jackie Smith and Mel Gray. In the second half, the Cardinals led 14-7. Then, everything turned around. With Terry Metcalf sidelined, Dallas tied the game, and with just 7 seconds left, were in position to win with a field goal. In Texas Stadium, the Cardinals' sensational 7-game winning streak came to an end, 17-14. On Monday night against Minnesota, the team tried to regain its winning ways. Their first score, a pass to J.B. Kane, showed why he was made the #1 draft choice. The Big Red attack moved well all evening against the Vikings. Jim Hart had his finest single game ever with 353 yards passing. But the defense let down. The Vikes led by 4 points with just 1 minute, 26 seconds left. On 5 straight completions, Jim Hart desperately drove his team to the Minnesota 25. But time ran out for St. Louis. They played a fine football game, but lost their second straight. and their once comfortable lead in the division race was now reduced to a single game. Thus, Week 10 was a crucial one. But against the sky-high Eagles, the offense couldn't get on track except for this one big play. Earl Thomas's catch led to Jim Hart's short touchdown plunge. It was the Cardinals' only touchdown of the day, but because of their ferocious defense, it was all they would need. Roman Gabriel was sacked 9 times, twice 3 times in a row, as the Cardinal defense dominated Philadelphia. The losing streak was snapped, 13-3. The next Sunday, in a hard-fought game against New York, the Cards moved closer to the title, beating the Giants on Jim Bakken's field goal, 23-21. The big play was yet another long Jim Hart to Mel Gray touchdown pass. Victory number 10 was the target as the Cards met the Chiefs on a cold, wet, windy winter day. Kansas City took the lead well into the final quarter before the Cardinals' offense finally came alive. The team battled back, but it was too little, too late, as St. Louis lost by 4. The next Sunday in New Orleans, the Cardinal offense completely disappeared. The team was shut out by the Saints and fell into a first-place tie in the division. Though their spot in the playoffs was secure, the Eastern title was now in doubt. On the final Sunday of the season, the Cardinals tried for the 3rd time to win the championship of their division. Every man on the squad knew this would be the last chance for a first St. Louis title. But the Cards fell behind from the beginning and trailed 14-0 at the half. Then, as it happened so often this year, the defense provided the spark, and the Cardinals' big play attack was back. In a stunning about-face, the Cardinals scored 4 touchdowns within 9 minutes against New York. Using the big play that propelled them from the bottom of the NFL to the top, St. Louis dramatically came from behind to defeat the New York Giants 26-14. The St. Louis Cardinals were the champions of the National Conference's Eastern Division. The exciting season of '74 had given St. Louis players and long, patient fans much to smile about. The finest record in 15 years and a postseason spot in the playoffs, the Cardinals' first in a quarter century. In only his 2nd season as a coach in the pros, Don Coryell perpetrated one of the great turnabouts in football history. Deservedly, he was named Coach of the Year. So 1974 will long be remembered in St. Louis as the finest year ever. The year the Cardinals used the big play to produce a very big season.